Everyone, whether they admit it or not, is afraid of something. Fears like public speaking, heights, the dark, lightning and thunder.
When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared.
Imagine if the things you were afraid of had physical form. No, I'm not talking about the Boogeyman or this guy. I'm talking about human beings that purposely terrorize everyone who is unfortunate enough to be in their path. The NBA, throughout its history, has employed some of these players that strike fear into the hearts of their opponents just by simply stepping on the court. These players gained an intimidating presence due to their unpredictable behavior on and off the court, overwhelming strength, ridiculous size, and their willingness to ruin someone's day or their season at any given moment. We are talking about the
Scariest players in NBA history.
Let's get started with one of the most unpredictable and scary players of all time, Latrell Sprewell, a player whose career-defining moment was when he choked his coach PJ Carlesimo. In 1997, the Golden State Warriors had a very disappointing start to the season. They started with an underwhelming record of 1-13. Sprewell was the team captain, which pushed Coach Carlesimo to start riding him in practice. He was using Latrell as a scapegoat for the team's disappointing start. During practice on December 1st, 1997, these actions pushed Sprewell too hard when he threatened to kill Carlesimo, which was followed by him choking him for 7 to 10 seconds.
And he was like a crazed animal at that time, so he never let go of PJ's neck.
Before he was pulled off by assistant coaches and teammates. He was banished from practice for the incident. He went to the locker room and showered, then came back minutes later to reportedly throw an overhand punch at his coach, which grazed his face. This punch, he later denied. He told the Chronicle, "If I really went after PJ, he'd look a lot worse than he did on TV." This incident isn't the only physical altercations in Sprewell's career. In 1993, during practice, Latrell received an elbow from teammate Byron Houston. Houston outweighed Sprewell by 50 pounds. That didn't stop Sprewell from throwing a barrage of 3 punches to the face of Byron. In 1997, the players were split for a practice game. A fight broke out between Sprewell and teammate Jerome Kersey. Latrell was severely outmatched in this fight. He left and returned with a large block of lumber that his teammates frantically tried to get from him. He then threatened to come back to practice with a gun. In 2002, the New York Times released an article reporting that Sprewell broke his hand in a fight on his yacht. He denied the claims and filed a lawsuit against the Times. He was fined by the league $250,000 for not reporting the injury. The scariest part about this man? When he was interviewed after the coach choking incident, he said,
"Well, I will say that, I was upset and I did lose control to a certain degree, but I didn't lose total control."
It's terrifying to think of what losing total control looks like for Sprewell. Many players who struck fear in opposing players were due to their ridiculous size or strength. This wasn't the case for Sprewell at only 6'5", and our next unpredictable personality, who was only 6'4".
So much talent in those little bodies.
I'm talking about Vernon Maxwell, aka Mad Max. Mad Max famously had numerous altercations with Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, and John Starks. In Seattle, during practice, Vernon Maxwell warned Gary Payton not to touch him. Payton wasn't about to back down.
You just don't know when to give up, do you?
I can do this all day.
Mad Max recalls getting the ball and going straight at GP, where he threw some punches and pulled his jersey over his head, slammed him into the stands.
Put these goddamn act rights on him. I call them act rights. These act right.
Act rights. You heard the man. That's what they're called. He continued to place these act rights not only on players, but also referees, camera crews, and fans throughout his career. After being thrown out of a game against the Chicago Bulls, Maxwell didn't like the call, and he followed the referee down the sidelines. After coaches and players held him back, he appeared to throw something at the referee before being escorted off the court. Another incident, Maxwell was heated after being ejected from yet another game. On his way back to the locker room, a staff member with a camera crew muttered the wrong thing. This resulted in Mad Max doing everything he could to get at this crew member. That wasn't the worst beating an innocent bystander received at the hands of Mad Max, though. In 1995, reports say that a Portland fan made racist comments and comments about his wife's recent miscarriage. Maxwell left the bench and charged into the stands to punch the fan in the face. This led to Vernon receiving a 10-game suspension. And who could forget the time that Maxwell's teammate, Hakeem Olajuwon, reportedly slapped the shit out of Maxwell during a halftime game against the Sonics. Maxwell reported he was slapped so hard, it knocked him out of his chair. Maxwell threw a chair and broke glass throughout the locker room. He picked up a piece of the broken glass and intended to stab Hakeem with it, before police came in, guns drawn, to break up the fight. Mad Max couldn't be a more fitting nickname. Maxwell has also famously hated Utah after all the beef created in their playoff matchups, a hatred that has stayed true to this day. Speaking of Utah, that takes us to our next scary player, Karl Malone. Malone was a more physical specimen to be afraid of. They don't make power forwards like him anymore. The mailman is the all-time leader for career technical fouls with 332. Malone was huge and couldn't keep his arms and legs to himself, which is something most of us were taught as kids. In 1990, he knocked out Jeff Hornacek with a flying knee to the face, which was only the beginning of his career TKOs.
No, I'm just getting warmed up.
Seems like Malone's goal was to be remembered as the Mike Tyson of the NBA. Cue the elbow montage.
Ouch.
Malone wasn't only scary on the court, he also made a negative reputation off the court. In 1983, a 20-year-old Karl Malone impregnated a 13-year-old minor. Then, in 2004, Karl Malone was rumored to have made advances toward Kobe Bryant's wife Vanessa, which Malone never admitted to or apologized for. He just issued an open invitation to knuckle up with Kobe.
We just go in the back with no cameras, no nothing, and let's just knuckle up and get it over with.
Did you ever make that offer to Kobe?
No, but it's standing.
Is there anything scarier than when your wife or kids aren't off limits?
So y'all need to hide your kids, hide your wife.
One scary player that famously didn't see eye to eye with Malone was Dennis Rodman. Rodman was fierce, and he always seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time on purpose. Dennis started his career with the Bad Boys in Detroit, then carried his passion throughout his career. His passion for the game gave him nicknames like Psycho and Dennis the Menace. Dennis wasn't gifted with overwhelming scoring or dribbling abilities. His talents were more focused on hustle, rebounding, physicality, and getting in opponents' heads and creating overwhelming annoyance. His annoyance and physicality were showcased during the multiple NBA Finals matchups with the Utah Jazz. Your size, your strength, your talent did not matter in the eyes of Rodman. He was coming at you. This was shown in this altercation with 7-foot George Murassan in 1997.
Not normally a guy you want shooting, and Rodman easy.
Shaq wasn't safe. Patrick Ewing wasn't safe. David Robinson wasn't safe. Alonzo Mourning wasn't safe. The referees weren't safe. Not even the cameramen were safe. He was coming for everybody. Another Detroit Piston that struck fear in the hearts of those who shared the court with him is Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace was undersized for a big man, but that didn't stop him from ruling the court during every game.
I am a god.
This undrafted free agent shares the record for the most defensive player awards of all time. He earned these awards by spending countless hours in the gym improving his strength. He once claimed that he could bench press 460 pounds, which is more than 2 times his weight. Big Ben didn't back down from anyone. His strength was showcased when he went head-to-head with Shaq during the 2004 NBA Finals. Throughout his career, Big Ben Wallace had the tendency to get heated. Ron Artest got all the bad press for Malice at the Palace, but it was the shove from Ben Wallace that sparked one of the most insane fights in NBA history. The Malice at the Palace, this event is forever stained on the NBA's resume. This matchup between the Pistons and the Pacers was really a collision that created a perfect storm. It combined some of the scariest NBA players on the same court, hot heads including Ron Artest, Steven Jackson, and Rasheed Wallace. Then combine it with the passionate Detroit Pistons crowd, and boom! There you have it. Absolute chaos.
Around a lot of sporting events, all right? Either playing in them or watching them. This is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Poll time. Who would you be more afraid of? Those 3 players or a Detroit crowd? Be honest. Another NBA player that wasn't scared to throw down was none other than Zach Randolph, Mr. Zebo himself. He was suspended one game for punching Steven Adams in a playoff series against the Thunder. Another Thunder altercation resulted in Zebo being ejected from the game when he told Kendrick Perkins, "I'll beat your ass." He had numerous battles with Blake Griffin, including the time he punched him in the face. Then he punched Phoenix player Louis Amundsen because he claimed Louis was trying to kiss him. Disclaimer: do not try to kiss Zach Randolph. These punches and threats were all fun and games until Zach messed with the wrong teammate. Randolph once sucker punched teammate Ruben Patterson, which shattered Ruben's eye socket. Ruben was a very intimidating personality who had been arrested 3 different times in the early 2000s. Zach knew he messed up big time and reportedly hid out for a few days at Dale Davis's house because he worried that Patterson was going to try to shoot him. This rivalry was explained more in depth by teammate Rasheed Wallace recently. He explained that Zebo and Ruben took their beef to the locker room. Rasheed explained, "They locked up like WWF." He continued to explain that Zach initially had the upper hand. Then Ruben pulled a gold medal winning move to catch him out of position. Then it was game over for Zebo. It was right after this that Zebo became a lover and not a fighter. One final absolutely terrifying player was the Big Diesel, Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq's size and power was unmatched during his time in the league. Shaq lived in the paint, and everybody knew it, but nobody could stop him. Shaq, at his heaviest, was close to 400 pounds and would bulldoze everyone in the lane. You can even ask Chris Dudley about the sheer power of Shaq.
He just overpowers him, and he comes down, and then he shoves him right there.
Poor guy. Shaq, early in his career, had many qualities people had never seen in a man his size.
His size and strength and mobility, it was something we really hadn't seen.
Shaq was normally liked by his teammates, but even they weren't willing to jump in front of this train for him. Unfortunately, these fans weren't blessed with the luxury of moving out of the way. Shaq was dominating, but apparently is no rocket scientist.
When you walk outside, you can see the moon, but you can't see LA. This is the guy I work with.
With so many fierce and scary players in the history of the league, let's leave you with other players who could have made this list. Players like Matt Barnes, Xavier McDaniel, the man who would shave his head and eyebrows to look more intimidating. Charles Oakley, the Big Oak, where his fighting never stopped, even after his retirement. He also played Michael Jordan's unofficial bodyguard in his time in Chicago. Jerry Stackhouse, who threw haymakers at Jeff Hornacek and beat up a Utah Jazz rookie, Kirk Snyder, after a game. Kevin Garnett, who was known for his constant and sometimes line-stepping trash talking. He once told Carmelo Anthony his wife tasted like Cheerios and called Charlie Villanueva a cancer patient. The list is endless. Let's hear from you who we might have missed in this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more outlandish basketball content.